Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Cinema Condition, a podcast devoted to analyzing films and what makes a movie a movie. I am your host, Raul Alejandro Mendoza, a filmmaker, podcaster, and lover of cinema. Today, I am joined by Julia. They are a streamer over on Twitch and TikTok, and a fellow cinephile as well. And today, they have selected City of God. Hey, Julia, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine despite the super cold weather in here, but everything doing great.
Doing great. You're all bundled up and you look all cozy
Yeah,
and
like
warm.
yeah, my hands are super cold. I'm trying to warm it up.
Yeah, yeah. It's been a while since we've heard from Julia here on the show. Last time she was on, what was the movie that we did last time you were on? It was
Djan- Django, I
no, no,
guess,
no, not
or
Django. No,
Blade
no,
Runner.
no. We did so that was season one. We did Blade Runner, but you did something for season two. You came on for season two. I can't remember, but
Yeah, me neither.
you were on because you selected Joker for season three, and you
Yeah,
selected and then there was another movie that you wanted to do for next
like
season, but
Black Swan, I guess.
no, I'll remind you off air, but it's been a while. It's been a while since I've had Julio on anything. It's been a while, so you
Yeah,
know I'm happy to see you. Always, I'm always happy to
me
see you.
too. Me
Yeah,
too.
yeah. But how are you doing today? How's your Sunday?
It was a great Sunday, actually. Tiring because of my grandma, but she's fine. And today she was so happy. So even though fell on the floor, but she was happy. So we enjoy every little moment when she's happy and fine. So
Yeah.
we made some candies for her, and she was like super happy.
she she got to eat some little candies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she can't see a candy that she has a sweet tooth. I swear.
Oh my god. Yeah. I understand. I heard what you told me yesterday. What happened, and yeah, of course, that's really important. It's okay that we had to reschedule, but yeah, especially when she's 109 years old.
Yeah,
Like
she is.
like that's old. That's old.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you gotta keep an eye on them because you don't know. Yeah.
she's she has been alive for like every um great moment from the last century, like the
Yeah.
first Great War, the second Great War, and Cold War. She was like, hello there.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember now. I just checked it. We did Mary and Max.
Yeah, Mary Max, of course.
Yeah. Oh my God, what a movie. But yeah, I'm hope that she's okay, and I hope that she's gonna recover. But yeah, this what you told me in the morning was crazy. Just like she just my God, my God. But
Right now she was complaining about the weather right now,
yeah. But
that
old
she
people get to a certain age where they just stop giving a fuck. That's the
yeah,
thing. Like they stop caring.
she just fell on the floor and she was like, I'm too tired for this shit. Just give me blankets and a pillow. Let me sleep in here. And she
Yeah.
slept for like 3 hours in the floor.
Oh my God. God. Yeah. That's definitely something. But I was gonna ask you. I know that it's been a while since you've been here, so did you want to like reintroduce yourself to the people?
So, hello guys, I'm Julia. I'm from Brazil. Right now, I'm a biology student. I'm on my vacations right now. Currently unemployed besides my Twitch and TikTok streamings, but that's it. And I'm a huge City of God lover.
Oh yeah. I can't remember if I approached you to do this episode or you were like, oh, can we do City of God? But I was like, hey, somebody's got to do it. Like, come on, the Brazilians got to do a Brazilian movie. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I was
So
really
everyone in Brazil can do great movies.
yeah to prove everybody in Brazil can do great movies. Yeah, yeah. I mean, Julia did was the one who told me that if you can have anything in Brazil. Apparently, yeah,
Yeah.
you can
You
have
can
great
have
movies too.
anything in Brazil, and that movie proves it.
Yeah, you. Oh man. Well, I'm really happy that you're here. This movie is obviously not a new movie that I've watched. I've watched this movie way before, and I loved it. I loved it when I first watched it, and I love it on a second time and on a third time. So I'm really what's it called glad that we get to do this episode today because this movie's heavy. This movie's freaking
Yeah,
heavy. Yeah,
it's really heavy.
yeah. But because we've never discussed any of these directors, I do have to read this nice little introduction that I wrote up for them. Uh,
Mhm.
so I know that Fernando Merielis was the only one that was recognized by the Academy, but Katia Lund did help out with the directing on this film. So I went ahead and I wrote introductions for both of them. Funny enough, of course, Katia Lund is not going to have a big, biography. So I got what I could from her, and I wrote this at the moment. So let me go ahead and introduce you all to Mr. Fernando Merielis and Miss Katia Lund. Fernando Merielis was born in Sao Paulo, Brazil on November 9th, 1955. He was introduced to different cultures and places through his father, who was a gastroenterologist who traveled to Asia and North America. When Fernando was 4, he saw his older brother die in an automobile accident. He learned about cinema through his father, who would direct 8 millimeter films at his job for the university. At 13, he started producing films inspired by Norman McLaren's animation with a Super 8 camera he borrowed. Fernando Meirelles studied at the Architecture and Urbanism College at the University of Sao Paulo. During the 80s he stu- sorry. During the 80s, his final project for graduation was in the form of a film. During his time in college, he was heavily involved in experimental filmmaking. He became an advertisement filmmaker after years of working in independent television. In 2002, he released his film adaptation of Paulo Lin's City of God, which is the movie that we're talking about today. With the international recognition of City of God, Eddie Ellis was offered a job in Hollywood to direct The Constant Gardener, starring Rachel Weisz. The film went on to receive several nominations, and Rachel Weisz won the Academy Award for Best Actress. In 2008, he released the film Blindness, which is an adaptation of Jose Santiago's Ensayo sobre Ceguera. My Portuguese is still pretty bad, but I tried that. I know that it's ensaio sobre
Ensaio
esse
sobre a cegueira.
sobre esse. Okay. In 2019, he directed and produced HBO's joint venture. That same year, he became the Academy Award nominated. He directed the Academy Award nominated Netflix film, The Two Popes. Now, from Miss Katia Lund was born in Sao Paulo, Brazil on March 13th, 1966. Lund graduated from Brown University, where she grew interested in filmmaking, magna cum laude, and landed jobs as an assistant director on music videos after finishing her schooling. Because she grew up middle class, she was unaware of the condition of the favelas. But while working on the Spike Lee directed music video for Michael Jackson's They Don't Care About Us, her eyes were opened while she filmed inside of a favela. She dedicated her career to making films that would bring social consciousness to these impoverished areas of Brazil. She started a non-profit acting school, Nos do Cinema, which offers,
Our cinema.
huh?
Not cinema nos.
Cinema Nos, okay. Offers, which translates to We Are Cinema, I believe, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
our cinema.
yeah, which offers courses and job opportunities in film to poor children, along with screenings and discussions to help raise social awareness through the medium of film. She directed a segment from the 2005 film All the Invisible Children. So yeah, of course, I looked for more information on Miss Scott Loon, but I couldn't find anything, and I tried to look where most of her other films were located, and I couldn't find anything. So sadly, she wasn't the one who gained the more international recognition with this
Yeah,
movie.
and
And
she's
yeah.
hired to the director of Elite Troop.
She's what?
she inspired him to
Oh, really?
write the movie. Yeah,
Wow, for Elite Squad, yeah,
Elite
totally elite,
Squad. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. That's cool. That's really I didn't know that she inspired him. Yeah, which
yeah.
Elite Squad is a great movie. It's a great movie. Yeah, I've never seen the sequel, but I saw the first one. Great movie.
The sequel is more political, and but it's an amazing film. Just like the first one.
Damn. Okay. Well, yeah, and it's sad that she didn't get the recognition. But look, it's Fernando Meirelles who got the recognition from the Academy. So of
Yeah,
course that she wasn't what's it called gonna get there. So sadly, that's kind of what happens when they do that. And the film became such a big success, and it was behind the name of Fernando Meirelles. So yeah. Which I mean, not to say that Fernando Meirelles is not a good director. He's a great director. I mean, I love the Two Popes. I watched the Two Popes from Netflix a long while ago when it came out, and it was fantastic. So he's good. I know that they went on to work on a show, City of Men, and they made a movie called City of Men as well. So
yeah.
she still got work in Brazil, but still hasn't really broken out, and it's sad. But I wanted to include her there at least. We're not. I'm not in the business of erasing the contributions of what women do in cinema. So I was like, I gotta put it out there for them. So here's some information, y'all, on City of God. The cast was discovered through Katya Loon's We Are Cinema nonprofit acting school. None of the cast except who you want to say that name?
So Jorge.
Matus
Ah,
Naktergal? Yeah.
so that's a hard name even for me.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I guess it's Mateus Nachergali.
Naktergal. Okay. Who plays Carrot was a professional actor. Most of the remaining cast were people from real life favelas, including the City of God favela. Meirelles
Yeah,
used non professional actors for authenticity and the lack of available professional black actors in Brazil. Today, I can open a casting call and have 500 black actors, but just 10 years ago, this possibility did not exist. In Brazil, there was 3 or 4 young black actors, and at the same time, I felt that actors from the middle class could not make the film. I needed authenticity. The cast
yeah,
worked to learn how to simulate authentic street war scenes to help create the gritty atmosphere of the film. Once the film stopped production, help groups were set up to help those involved in the film to build a more promising future instead of leaving them to return to their old lives in the favelas. Michaelis chose to stick to the casual nature of the violence instead of glamorizing it on screen by keeping killings off frame or showing them instinctively. The film was shot on 16 millimeter film stock. During the production of the film, the real city of God favela was in conflict, so most of the film was shot in Cidade Alta. If that's how you say it,
Cidade
right?
Alta.
Huh?
Cidade Alta.
Cidade Alta. Alt.
It was
Ah,
great.
yeah. Because the slumlords didn't allow the production company to have security, they hired local security guards for safety on
Yeah.
set. The film became an international hit and was nominated for 4 Academy Awards. The film has a standing legacy in Brazil. It sparked major increase in film productions in Brazil, including The Motorcycle Diaries. Michaelis and Lund went on to make the City of Men TV series and the 2007 film, which shares some of the actors from the film, like Douglas Silva and Darlan Cunha. And I read that Lula actually had said that the film had sparked a lot of like policy and a lot of change in the government. So yeah, this movie has a big, big legacy in Brazil, from what I can imagine. Right? I'm guessing that is what happened. So yeah, Julia, why did you select City of God?
Um, First of all, because I really love this movie, um, and it shows that Brazil we have a lot of favelas in Rio, and how connected they are to the high society as well. Like we can see how people that time they were so neglected, and by the time in the movie they are seen like they are all criminals. People sadly still like that sometimes. When someone says they live in a favela, they believe this person is involved with crimes, is just a criminal. And since Rio is such a huge city, people forget that there are good people everywhere and there are criminals everywhere. Just it's not just because you came from a favela that you are a criminal. And in the movie, it shows that uh, how many different people can come from a favela, and also how bad politics were in there. Like we don't have public politics in there by the time, and um, it uh, uh, police used to go a lot of favelas and still do it. It's really sad. Police goes in favelas and just shot everyone, just shoots everyone. Like, I mean, you're in a favela, you're a criminal, we just have to kill you, you know.
Yeah.
And it shows this sad situation in Brazil during a time people just pretend it didn't exist. So for me, it's a great movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you selected it because I remember when I saw this for the first time, I was just like blown away. But of course, the editing and in the cinematography. First of all, like the directing was just incredible. But I was like, you don't get a lot of these type of films, that really show you like actual real life in the favelas and not that
Yeah,
glamorized what he was saying. Like he didn't want to like glamorize this violence. Instead, he wanted to show it to you in a way that was like saying like, hey, this is what happens here, and it's seen as
yeah,
normal even though it shouldn't be normal, but this is what it looks like. And
yeah.
it came out in
It's
a
not.
really, oh, sorry, go
It's not.
ahead.
It's not a glamorization. It's just what it is.
Mm-hmm. And it came out like in a really interesting time where in like the early 2000s where you have a lot of these like, you know the late 90s has these like really like gritty, gangster movies, and you have these like crime films that are like starting to take over. And all of a sudden just comes this Brazilian film that kind of does the same thing and kind of opens them to like saying like, oh crap, like look at what Brazil can produce. And we get some, you get later on in the history of the cinema from Brazil, you get like Elite Squad that just takes so
Yeah.
much from City of God and makes such a great film as well. So yeah, I'm glad you selected this one.
Yeah, we have Carandiru too. That is a movie about a massacre that happens in a prison in here. That is,
Yeah,
it shows just like City of God how reality was at the time.
yeah. And my professor, my old professor, he talks a lot about Central Station as well. That's a movie from Brazil that he's always telling me like, oh, you gotta watch Central Station. Central Station's like really good, and I've never seen it, but I'm gonna guess
Me
like,
neither.
yeah, yeah. He
I'm
said,
sorry, me neither.
yeah, no, he's like Central Station's like really good. I'm like, okay, I've never seen it, but I'm like, yeah, but this movie, and like it says in the like I said in the introduction, like it opened for productions to come to Brazil. Motorcycle Diaries of freaking Diego Luna. I mean, that shot was shot mostly in
Yeah,
Brazil, and it helped out a lot with that stuff. So um, I'm glad that you selected this one. I love this movie. I'm glad that I got to rewatch it because it's always so good to rewatch this one, especially those first 20 minutes, man. Whew, God, what great.
the chicken scene,
Yes, the chicken
the
scene.
chicken scene,
Yeah,
and the way they record it is just amazing.
yeah,
They just thought, okay, there's chicken, we're gonna record that chicken.
yeah. But what surprised me was that, it got nominated for Best Cinematography, it got nominated for Best Editing, it got all these, and it didn't even make it to the short list for Best International.
Yeah.
Which, like,
Do you know how they recorded this chicken scene?
how?
With a broom.
Of course. Of
They,
course they did it with a broom.
yeah, they put the camera on a broom and start running after the chicken with the broom. It's just amazing. this information just made the scene even better. When I watch
Yeah,
it and then I remember it, it's just amazing.
that's great. Have you ever seen The Raid 2?
mm, I don't think so.
It's an Indonesian action film. Well, there's a what's it called? There's a scene in that film where they're like doing a high speed chase and stuff. They literally had people driving and walking from the trunk of cars to take the camera to the other car to shoot that scene, so they could keep it
Amazing.
like that. Which, by the way, is heavily dangerous. Do not do that ever. Obviously, in Indonesia, I don't know how they work with like laws for that type of stuff, but in the United States, you are not allowed to do that.
You
But
can't do that.
yeah, yeah, but like that's crazy. They did it with a freaking broom. Wow.
A broom.
Well, oh
The
my
first time
god.
I watched this scene, I was like, okay, they probably put it on a little car or, you know, normal stuff, but a broom.
Yeah,
No.
you would think like I don't know like a dolly track or something to, and they would just like
Yeah,
speed it up, but no, it's a freaking
it was fucking broom.
freaking broom. Oh my god!
As
But
I said, in Brazil, you can have anything.
you can do anything in Brazil. Yeah, you can have anything in Brazil. You can attach a 16 millimeter camera to a broom and somehow still get that freaking shot. That is crazy. Oh my god. Well, we've already talked about it, so let's go ahead. Are you ready to do this?
I'm fucking ready.
All right, I'm ready too. This is our conversation on Fernando Meirelles and Katia Loon's City of God. So we open up the film in the City of God favela, and we're kind of going around with this young boy, and he what's it called? He has, if I remember correctly, we open up with him with the camera, and he's going around, and it is the chicken scene that we open up with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, chicken's going around, but they're being it's being chased by this group of boys with guns and all these things, and they're all saying like, catch the goddamn chicken, like catch the chicken, we need the chicken, and it stops, and we are what's it called? We see this boy who has a camera, and they're telling him like, hey, catch the chicken, catch the chicken, but behind him is the police, and from there we're going into like these this like really interesting game with like flashbacks to the present, to back to the flashback in the past and to the present, and eventually it all comes back to continue the story where we left off in the beginning with this guy with his camera trying to take a picture, supposed to be being told to take a picture, and from there, like obviously we know that this big fight starts with the police doesn't do it, the police leave, but it was with a rival gang there in the favela. But of course, if we're going to talk about City of God, we do have to talk about the favelas. So I wanted to open up the conversation with our discussion here on the favelas, and I know that here in the United States we classify this movie as a hood film, and it's like nowhere near like a hood film like Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood, and shit, like even like the French film La Haine. Like this is nothing like this. This is like down to the fucking bone, like gritty, showing you everything
Yeah.
that's going on in this favela. Like you have these very impoverished areas that like are very like the infrastructure is like non-existent. It's like I'm sure that if you
I
have like a fucking major hurricane go through there, like a lot of those
I have no
houses.
idea how they work in there. I mean, how they build stuff.
Yeah,
Those streets, those houses. I mean, it's honestly, it's amazing.
yeah.
If you
Like
think about it, it's just amazing how they build favelas. You know?
yeah, and then like there's stuff that's like stacked on top of each other, and then there's
Yeah.
things that are connecting each other, and what I think the movie does great also is like introducing you to that like area, and they like in the what's it called in the flashbacks they show you that like, oh, it looks like your standard village, and then it transforms into like this crazy architecture that is like what is we know now as a favela, and it looks like really chaotic.
Yeah. It is like that until these days, they just, people know how to live in there.
Yeah.
And I really think here in my city, it's not actually a favela because it's like super small compared to favelas in Rio. But people just go building houses and houses and houses, and they remember, oh, we have to have a street in here. We have to pass through it. And they just okay, now we have a street in here, but we're gonna have houses in here. And
Yeah.
oh, we have to get the street to somewhere. Now we need other street. And it's just like that.
Yeah. Well,
But favelas in Rio, they were built in, how do I say it? Wait a minute, just to translate it.
yeah. It's okay. I'm glad, and that's why I'm glad I have a
Hills.
Brazilian doing this movie. You're gonna know all this shit.
Favelas were built in hills, like huge hills that have in Rio, because several years ago, like in the beginning of the last last century, um, people were supposed to get vaccinated because, oh my god, I have vaccines. People need to get vaccinated. And those people who didn't want to get vaccinated, they just leave the city because you can't live in here because you're not vaccinated.
Hmm.
So people started to build their houses in the hills that it was where they were supposed to be because they were, well, how do I say it, expelled from their homes
Hmm.
because they didn't want to get vaccines. Because it wasn't like, okay, you want to get a vaccine? Okay. No, they were obliged to get vaccines.
Oh.
It wasn't like today, like, oh, okay, we know that people should get vaccinated and, all this stuff. It was brutal. So people were sent away to hills and started like that. They started building houses in the bottom of the hill and started growing, going up, 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 and now we have favelas.
And now we magically have favelas. That's
Yeah.
interesting. And that's what I was gonna ask you. I was gonna ask you right now, like, hey, do you know about like what the creation of the favelas were? Because like, obviously I've never been to Brazil, even though Julia wants me to go to Brazil. Even more now that Bolsonaro is no longer what's it called, the president. She's like, yeah,
Yes.
now it's good. Now you can go to Brazil.
Now you can come.
Yeah, now if they tell you like, oh, you don't have your passport, you can't get out of Brazil. Now it's gonna be good to stay in Brazil. But yeah, I was gonna ask you that because I don't know what it's like, and you can tell in those flashbacks that like it is kind of hilly, and they have like what's it called, but you can tell that they're barely starting to build them out because you just have like these houses, like it looks like just like a standard village, like it's like
Yeah.
okay, but then when you go into the present, you're like, oh crap, like look at what it became, like it's become like this huge like area, and it becomes sadly it becomes stricken with crime. There's drug flow, there's prostitution, there's like all these things because, well, I'm gonna guess that a lot of the people who were not inclined to taking the vaccines were people who were impoverished. They were lower class people
Yeah.
who probably grew up not being trustworthy of the medical system in Brazil. They weren't very trustworthy of doctors. So when they left
Yeah.
over there, there wasn't a
And
lot of jobs.
usually black people, because here in Brazil, slavery ended up like super late. You
Yeah,
know, we have slavery and almost until, let me see, I guess
1850 something, right? Or no, 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 not like
18 something,
yeah,
1880 something.
yeah,
So black people were neglected because racism and like, okay, you're not slave anymore, but you're not people for us because you're black. So all those people also uh, didn't have medical care and stuff, and they were poor, and they ended up going to favelas too because they couldn't live in the normal society. They weren't well seen in the society,
yeah.
so they were neglected and sent to the hills. and you know that people didn't believe in the system because the system failed them. I mean, I
Hmm.
don't judge them. So the crimes go there because since they were sending people there, they pretended favelas did not exist. So crimes in there did not exist because we don't care about those people. So
Yeah.
if there's crime in there, we don't care. And it escalated very quickly if you as you see in the movie.
Yeah. And then obviously, like, and then once the press gets a look at the favelas, they're like, oh, we need to see what these areas are like. We have to have coverage of these areas. Like, it's somehow like, hey, once we care about these areas, we can exploit these areas to like get for our jobs. But are we gonna actually try to help you all and try to like better these areas? Oh, of course not.
Yeah, and nowadays people in favelas, they love their favelas. You know, nowadays it's just people love to live in there. They don't want to live there. They
Yeah,
don't want to leave their homes because ever since Cidade de Deus, City of God, and other movies that showed how favelas work, and after Lula, the first government in here, it was like in 2002, I guess. 2000, I believe it was 2002. And he gave those people rights, medical care, medical access. They could go to the doctors. They built hospital near favelas. So right now, besides the police situation and the crime situation, it's a good place to live because people love being there. You know,
hmm,
I believe in the rest of the world see favelas like, oh my God, they still like see that city of God. No,
yeah,
it's not like that anymore. It's like, I mean, the structure is the same, but the environment is not the same anymore. You know?
yeah. Well, and it was interesting that like you see this movie and it's like yes, there's the scary parts of this movie, the like the crime and the drugs, right, in the favelas, but there's also like these really cool stuff like you have these people just doing like funk raves, funks, you
Yeah.
know, and they're like out there dancing, they're having fun, and they're doing DJ stuff, and like they have food out there, and it's like, you know, it's kind
Yeah.
of
It
the
shows that people there have fun. They are normal people.
yeah, like you
They
can live in
just
these dangerous
yeah,
areas, but it can be fun too.
yeah, they just want to live. They want to, enjoy things. They weren't um accepted in like a high society or white people parties. So they did their parties. So
Yeah,
right now people want to go to favelas and go to parties in there,
yeah,
but uh in those days, no, people shouldn't leave favelas. Like you can step in there, so they
yeah,
have to have fun their way. So they have to do their parties. So
yeah. And it's like it's in a way that you know, and like here I'm gonna have to do that thing where my American thing where I have to like somehow relate it to my experience, but in the way it's like how it feels like the way that the barrio is portrayed here in the United States, and it's like all these areas where there's like a lot of gang members and it's so scary and like. But there's also the really cool parts where like, oh, there's like the cookouts and stuff like that, and you have people who like are having like block parties and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, you know, nowadays everyone's like, oh man, I want to go to the hood, like the hood's so fun,
yeah,
like back then it was like, oh no, how could you go there, like oh my god, you're gonna get shot, you're gonna get killed, like you're gonna get
yeah,
kidnapped, and it's like it's kind of changed so drastically over the years, and part of it has to do because of the media, and also you know of course the way that the what's it called these areas have gotten more help now, but
yeah. And people who lived in those areas, they had the opportunity to go to school, university. And since you study with someone, oh, I'm from this dangerous place, and I have friends from that dangerous place, and we're not dangerous. And since all those people are having access to study, to school, So people, oh, they're normal people too.
Mm-hmm.
We we don't we don't have to fear them. It's like it's a dangerous place. Yeah, it is, but nowadays everywhere is dangerous.
Everywhere is dangerous. Like I always say, if you're looking for trouble, you're probably gonna find it.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, and it's like I
you
said,
don't have even to look for it. To just stay still in the middle of the street during the night. The trouble finds you.
trouble finds you. Yeah, everywhere is dangerous if you're at the right time at the right place. And it's
It's
also interesting that we're how at the time that we're doing this episode, because when this episode is like when we're doing this episode, Brazil has finally changed its government. It's it's what's called Bolsonaro lost, and we have Lula is now president, and it's really interesting to see how have this now have this president who really encouraged and opened his arms to the black population
yeah,
of Brazil, and instead of the president before who you know ignored them and vilified, and it was very what's it called against the very, let's be honest, like the indigenous
yeah,
people of Brazil. And in the favelas in this film, you see there's a lot of brown people. There's like a lot of brown and black people. Meanwhile, when the guy goes to work at the press, you see it's a bunch of like lighter skinned people, you know, and they're all and especially she takes him home to her house, to because he's like, hey, I can't go back to my favela because you're gonna get me killed because they saw the
yeah,
picture. Her house is very different too. It's very nice. Like she lives on the street, and like she's able to lock her doors and stuff, and it's like it's very quiet as well. And it's like, yeah, like, oh, you really do see the difference in the social divide.
yeah. And in Rio, it's like super clear the difference between the social. Is there is a picture, but I believe it's in São Paulo, not in Rio, that shows a favela, like a huge favela, and a 5-star condo just next to it. It's
Ah,
Rio is something like that. I think that this picture is from São Paulo, but Rio is just like that.
yeah, yeah, and it's just interesting how the movie does that, and it also kind of shows you like the difference in the cultures there, because like, oh, all the people in the favela, like even though it is crime ridden and it is very like, it's very what's it called dangerous. A lot of people are like looking out for each other in those favelas. Like the guy when he's running away from the police, and he's what's it called, he just knocks on the door and he's like, hey, like let me in, like the police are chasing me, and this is lady who's like, the lady barely knows him. Like she knows of him, but like doesn't know him like completely enough to like say like, oh, let me put a random stranger in my home. She opens the door. She's like, here, come in. And it's just it's very different. Whereas like that lady where she lived from the press, like it's all quiet. You don't see anybody outside. Nobody's kind of like making any noise. Everyone's just kind of like in their own space.
Yeah. It's like us against the police.
Yeah, yeah. Us against the police, right? And
In
you have
favelas, people tend to stick together when it's about police. Even in here in my city, like my boyfriend, for example, lives next to the most dangerous favela here in my city. But you know, my when the first time I went to see him, my dad was like super, okay, you need to be careful. It's like it's dangerous in there. And my boyfriend was like, yeah, it's dangerous if you don't live here.
yeah,
If you live here, it's fine. It's super fine.
yeah. So what you're saying is that Leo has protection in the hood.
Yeah,
Yeah, Leo's
just like
protected. Leo's
something like
protected.
that.
Yeah, he can walk through there and he's protected. He's like, you don't gotta worry. Yeah.
Yeah, and he has a cousin that is a member of a gang too, so like a
Oh,
far cousin. So we're fine.
we're
We're
gonna be
fine.
okay. We're gonna be okay. Nothing's gonna happen to me. Well, yeah, and so the movie also goes into the theory about talking about drugs and stuff, and the presence of cocaine, and it's very strong. The drug presence is very strong. It's what's also kind of leading the violence in here, as these
Hmm.
territories are trying to control as much to go ahead and have the trade for drugs go around, so that way they can make money off of that, and also employ like the part that always gets me about this movie is like in the United States you do not get movies showing children like in gangs and like I'm talking about kids, like kids. I'm not talking about like 11, 12 year old kids. Like, nah,
It's 6 year olds.
6 year old holding a gun and what's it called? Trying to be like, yeah, like that's what I want to be like. Like this top drug lord here, like the slumlord
Yeah.
here, like I want to be like him. And it's a big culture shock because like you never see this in movies here. Like we know that it happens here in the United States. It
Yeah.
does. It's a very real thing. But the cinema of the United States kind of ignores that. Whereas like in this movie, it's right front and center in front of you.
Yeah. Here in Brazil, it's very serious situation that kids get involved in crimes, and they go, "Oh, you see, they love doing crimes. They don't care about crimes, and some, you know, the criminals protect them
Yeah,
in their favelas. Police goes there and shoot their parents, even if their parents are innocent.
yeah,
So they see the criminals as the good guys. They don't see them as criminals, you know. So if you're a kid and you see your parents getting shot by the police for no fucking reason, why should I trust the police?
yeah,
I want to be in the side of the guys that are against the police, which might be drug dealers, criminals, you know. I want to be with them because they would protect me. They
yeah,
showed me how to hold a gun to protect myself from the police that killed my parents.
yeah,
And that's what happens. And that's a way the drug dealers use to not get involved with the dealing. You know, kids can get
yeah,
arrested. So, and no one would, you know, oh, it's just kids. It's not gonna, they're not gonna do anything. Use the kids.
yeah. But then you see how like Dadinho, how he was like, and then how he like transforms as a kid. Where like, he which is also really interesting because they're like telling Dadinho like, no, like I don't want you to do this. Like this is not for you. Like this is not the life that you should have. Like, but then something snaps in the kid, and he kills his first man there at that one mission when they go to the motel,
Yeah.
and like something snaps in him. Like he goes on a killing spree and he becomes this like ruthless like kid who ends up becoming this young adult who's gonna become the slumlord. And you can see that like, oh, like these kids are pawns. Like it's easier to tell these kids to deal the drugs because they're not gonna get, like you said, they're not gonna get arrested. You know, and they know that like they really can't do anything. The police can't do anything to them, and that's kind of why the police will instead go after the parents because it's easier to shoot and kill a adult than it is to shoot and kill a child. Like that looks worse on you than shooting and
Yeah,
killing.
like media would go after you if you kill a kid, but if you kill an adult,
Oh no, it's just another day in the favela, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not there be a policeman in Brazil.
Yeah. Welcome to welcome to being a policeman in Brazil. Yeah,
How
and
many people did you kill today?
yeah, yeah. God, just yeah, it's crazy. But and they have these kids who like, and I'm always gonna remember that scene where like Dadinho goes to those two kids who like they're like getting involved and like I can't remember if they messed up something for Dadinho's crew and
Yeah,
he chases them and this is where Michaelis does a great job with like showing the killings off frame and not really like showing it happen because he shoots the kid in the foot. He tells him like, "You want me to shoot your hand or your foot?" And
and the kids go, the hand, so
obviously the
fuck you.
hand, right? He shoots the kid in the what's it called the foot, and you see the what's it called the what's it called the foot bleed, But then he tells the kid, like the one who was with them, he's like, choose which one you want to kill. And he does, like he chooses the other one, not the one who got not the one on the left. He shoots the one on the right. And Michaelis does this great thing where he like changes the focal point, and he blurs out where this kid is sitting like just like this on the frame, and he's dying. And he like keeps the what's it called? He keeps the focus on Dadinho. And I was like, oh, like that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And it's also much more powerful than straight up showing the body bleeding out.
Yeah, you can see the character development in the eyes of the Genius. You know, one thing I say about every time I see movies is adaptations of Stephen King books, for example. It's a hard stuff trying to adapt a Stephen King book because it's all mental stuff. You know, characters are going through a lot of mental situations, a lot of feelings. And when you see a Stephen King movie, you don't see you. It's hard to get that thing from the book. And I see that in the genius. The genius face. You can see the snap this of his personality being built in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like
It's
as he
like,
recognizes that he's kind of hit the point of no return, right? Like he's like, okay, now
yeah,
now I have to be about it because like I just killed a kid. Like,
yeah. He was so young that in that moment he had two options. Oh, I hate it. I will never do it again. Oh my god, I love it, and I would certainly do it again. And in that moment, you see this in his eyes, and it's amazing.
yeah. And like I said, like, and it's crazy to think that they're all non-professional actors. Like they're all like, but also that's the great part because I love working with people who've never acted. Um, there's something that you can get out that's just different. Like you have like this because they don't understand the intricacies of like acting. They don't know what it's like, and so when you're helping them through the process, they're able to tap into something that the actors who are like well trained have been like taught to ignore. They're like, no, 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 like let's just stick to what you know and stick to the script. Whereas like these non-professionals, like you can get something out of it differently. And Dadinho is one of those examples where you're looking at him and you're just like this guy. I can't believe this guy's not a professional. Like this guy looks like he's been in this for a while now.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
he's a
but
great actor. He's in a great. He's amazing.
yeah, I don't know
Nowadays,
how.
he's such a kind person. He's such an amazing person.
Yeah,
I love him.
yeah, I don't know what his role is in in like what's it called cinema now. I don't know if he's like prominent actor anymore, but
Um, he's not like a great actor anymore because sadly, actors in City of God, just a few of them really engaged in movies. Other ones just like get small papers in soap operas in Brazil.
mm,
But the genius, he did a reality show here in Brazil.
ah,
Like last year or 2 years ago, he did Big Brother Brazil, and because now they have famous and non-famous
yeah,
people,
yeah.
and he was one of the famous people, and he's amazing. It was so good to see him again. Like to see him sparkling again and people talking about him because he's great. He's a great actor. He's a
Yeah,
great actor.
yeah, and like we going back, in these areas, like of course, if it's hard to find jobs and it's hard to have care, y'all. What's the thing that you're probably gonna lean towards to get to do it for money? Of course, you're gonna deal. You're gonna deal, and it's
Yeah.
and and at points like that one guy, I can never remember his name, but he was the one who kisses the girl that our main character's like in love with, in the first. Like you see how
Let
like
me see.
what was his name?
Let me see if I
I
can.
he was
I'm
the light
terrible.
skinned boy, the light skinned boy with like curly hair. Um, he's the, like he gets like really addicted to the cocaine. Like he starts
Yeah.
like getting really addicted, and there was a line that really interested me where he goes to one of them and he's like, "Hey, can I get some more?" And he goes like, I'm not dealing today. Like I don't have any on me." Like and then he goes like, he says something like really that really sparked in my head, and I was like, he tells him like, "You guys are the ones that hook us on this thing, and you still can't even supply it to me."
Yeah.
And it's just like it opened my eyes, and I'm like, yeah, you create these people who are like dependent on these things because whether you want to or not, like this is what's gonna bring you money, and you have to make money because they're not they're how else are they gonna live? How are they gonna be able to afford food? How are they gonna be able to, you know, afford to have water and everything? But in turn, you get these population of people who like they're gonna what's it called rise up against you, create gangs so that way they can take over your business. And then on the other side, you have people who become addicts and they become dependent on this, and it gets harder to navigate life in society as an addict.
Yeah, for the dealer it's good because the client will always come back.
Yeah,
But for people,
no, and you see like every single time he comes back for more, he even like that he even gives him the camera. He tells him like, "Hey, if I can I trade you this camera for like for coke?" And he's like, no, I don't. And it wasn't until like the girl told him like, hey, but I'm pretty sure that like what's it called? He's gonna love that camera. Like he because he wants that one guy. And like I hate that I can't pull up my the other notes here because we're recording off the browser tab. So if I do that, these notes are gonna show up. But I swear, when you say the name of our main character, it's gonna come to my head. Um, but when
Buscapé.
yeah, Buscape, yeah. When Buscape goes and he's like, she tells him like, oh, Buscape would love that camera, and something clicks in his head. He's like, yeah, like I'm planning to get out of here with you. It's like, oh, let me just what's it to him? Like, let me just give him the camera, and he like, here's some coke, and but you see like how what's it called, the lengths that they're going to. Like, he probably stole that camera. Let's be real, he stole that shit. Like, ain't no way that he just bought that.
Yeah, like, oh my god, a camera just fell in my hand.
No, like he stole that and he
Yeah.
traded it, and of course, him and the other guy and Dadinho get into that fight, and but you see just like how the people are getting dependent on the drug, and also like the lengths they're willing to go, like to the point they're like, hey, like I'll trade you this camera, what's it called, and you can tell like I said, every single time he kept coming back for more,
Yeah.
it became more and more like fidgety.
Yeah.
And I really like that when it comes to performances. Like you can tell like his body language was like so uneasy every single time he came back for more.
Yeah, in this situation you can see how criminality works. Like, okay, I'm going to be a drug dealer. So my clients will be buying drugs from me, but they will need more. They will need more and more and more. And if they don't have anything else to sell in their house, they're gonna after something. So there's the robbery, murders, just to get stuff to buy drugs. So sometimes not the dealer is not actually killing people from his hands, but he contributes to it.
Yeah, and and it's interesting because like of course if you're looking at this, if it's happening during the time that this movie's released in 2000s, we all know where that drug's coming from. It's not coming from Brazil. It's being imported from Colombia, and it's being brought to Brazil. Now, um, of course, the girl from the press, she's smoking weed and stuff, and like she what's it called, has a joint and everything. But you go off to these favelas, and it's like, oh, the weed is there, but like the big thing that's being supplied is the coke. Cocaine is like
Yeah.
as like freaking prominent,
Cocaine
And
was a drug at the time, 2002, cocaine was the thing.
yeah, kind of like in the 80s in in the United States, cocaine was everywhere. But remember, what's it called? Cocaine wasn't, that was the rich man's drug. Cocaine in the
Yeah.
United States was the rich man's drug. Crack was the one that was introduced to the poor areas, and that's the one that got like widespread. So it was interesting to watch this movie, and you see like, oh no, like cocaine got sent to the freaking to the poor areas, and weed was more prominent in this like richer areas and the very like, the higher class area, the medium to high class areas.
Yeah.
So, and that's just a bigger discussion on the drug trade and just the effects of what the war on drugs did to South America in general. I mean, that's it's a bigger conversation, and
We
you're the
spent the whole day talking about it.
yeah, you're the resident Brazilian, so I have no idea how it worked over there, but like just how all that got introduced. I'm sure it got introduced because of the Colombian drug trade, but um, if the government had a hand in like sending that in there, and like in the way that like the United States government had a really big hand, mostly the CIA, introducing crack into the black neighborhoods in the United
Yeah.
States.
There's interesting thing in the laws in Brazil that um you can only forbid something, you know, exists. You know, like I know cocaine exists, so okay, this is forbidden. It's a crime to sell cocaine. But then, okay, but what if I change cocaine to other thing? What if I mix cocaine with something else so it becomes something else? It's no longer a crime because it does not exist.
Yeah, but that's where
So
they start to cook it and like, oh, we create crack, and
yeah,
we're like, okay, never mind. Like, and that's interesting the way it works, right? Because it's like the law is more like, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist, right? Like you're saying, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist, so I don't have to worry about it, so I can ignore these
if it doesn't
communities.
reach, if it doesn't hurt rich people, who cares?
Who cares, right? Meanwhile, these poor areas and these favelas are crumbling apart because they have access to nothing else. Like there's little to no job opportunities, and these drugs are crumbling apart the community and making it where it's like hard for these communities to like interact with each other, and you create these rival gangs that are going to start to eliminate each other. So like, what's the point of having the police come out here to fix the criminals if they're already killing each other?
Exactly.
And I
It's
guess
only a
that's
problem when it's leave favelas. It's a
yeah,
problem is when it reaches the high society.
yeah. And I guess that's where we could talk a little bit about the organized crime, aka the police, right? Because like you have the gangs here, obviously the criminals, the ones who are like, they're doing all the killing, they're doing all the drug trading. But it's really interesting you see the police in here, because the police, first of all, the first time we see the police, they barely even want to be there. They kind of like their body language reads like, I don't want to be here. Like, why the fuck do I have to be in this area? Like, it's not even worth my time.
Yeah, you know, police goes to favelas only when they have, a target.
Yeah,
If they don't have a target, why? What the fuck I'm doing here? You
yeah,
know, it's like in that time, during that time, it was just so with no point going to favelas because they were killing themselves. There was no point. There was no reason to go in there.
yeah.
But during that time, that police got involved with the drug dealers and with the militia, and how the organized crime started to grow. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there's a great documentary about it. Actually, I'm gonna send you later
Okay.
about wars in Brazilian wars. That all wars that happened in Brazil since you know since the beginning. And in the last episode, it's on Netflix. And the last episode is about the drug war. and how police is extremely involved because okay, I have to go to a favela, but I don't want to go in there. But I have to. If I don't go there, I'm going to lose my job. But if
Mm-hmm.
they pay me to pretend I'm not seeing anything, I'm not seeing anything. The government doesn't pay me very well. But that dealer is paying me pretty good to pretend I'm not seeing anything.
Mm-hmm. And
And that's how police start getting involved, and they give money to dealers. So
yeah,
because in so they can control favelas without being there. Police only goes to a favela when something went wrong with the plan. Like,
yeah.
okay, they killed the guy that was paying me. Now I have to go in there.
Yeah, and it's like you see it in that shootout, like in the last part of the movie, where they're like, oh, like they're holding their guns, they're like, oh, the police, like, well, it's okay, like we can take them out, and the police leave, and then the rival gang comes in,
Yeah,
but it's like, obviously the police hired them so that way they could what's it called wipe them out because because let's be honest, the police view Dadino's crew as the bigger threat than this rival
yeah,
gang, and this is where the police gets it really wrong too, where it's like, oh, we can take these groups and who are weaker to wipe out these other groups, but they never really think about like, wait, if we eliminate the major group that's contributing to the most what's it called crime in here, and when we have this smaller one, if we leave them alone, they're gonna grow power, and it's gonna leave us to once again have to go back in here if we don't like. We still have to come and fix and find a solution to this problem, but the police just don't want to do it.
yeah. There's a situation that happened here in my city. There was a huge drug dealer. He was like the guy from that. He was like the guy. Everyone knew him. You, I mean, in the drug society, everyone knew him. But then, you know, police didn't touch him because he was the leader. No one of the other drug dealers was would do shit against him. He
Good to
even
know
he
that
was
Brazil is like Mexico.
even he being a criminal, he was controlling everything. Everything was good. Criminality was like low, super low because of him. It wasn't police controlling things. It was him. But then there was a exchange of presidency in the police station, and they shot him to death. And now we can't go out on the streets without being robbed because without a leader, someone wants to be the leader.
Yeah.
So they're they started a drug war against gangs just because they killed one fucking guy that was doing police job better than themselves.
And that's where they seem to forget. Like they think that if they cut the head off of the snake, it fixes the problem. But there's other parts to it. There's
No, the crime is like a hydra. You don't cut off his head.
yeah, because
It's,
there's others groups. There's leaders that were already set up before to take that group, and it leads to more destabilized areas.
yeah,
Yeah, and of course, let's be real. Like a lot of this has to do as well with intervention in Latin America and how Brazil. It's like City of God is such an interesting view of like how destabilized Brazil was for a period of its history, and how these very vulnerable areas were able to fall into the hands of like organized crime because they were ignored because what's it called the governments that were involved in this puppet state were able to what's it called were more concentrated on this inner city and like all these rich areas to rebuild from there, while they just ignored these other areas that were just like, oh, who cares about them? They're the poor areas, they're the lower class, like they don't matter.
during dictatorship here in Brazil, poor people were sent to favelas because, you know, it's not clean to be poor, you know.
Yeah.
So they ignored favelas during, it started in the 60s until the 80s, almost 90s, people being neglected in favelas. And
Hmm.
the police, like, hey, poor people don't exist.
Yeah. And I remember in the film like when they pick up like the young Buscape when he's like when his when his brother gets in trouble for what's it called for going this for that because it's so funny. That scene is so funny. Like I love this movie. I know it's like really heavy film, but there's parts of this movie that's just funny as well.
Yeah.
Because that one lady who is married to the guy who kills her and buries her alive, she gets asked by this other woman like, oh, like has your man never like ate your ass before? Like he's kind of saying like he's never like done that before. Like oh no, like no, it's never happened. And like they're like openly talking about this shit. And it's like so then Buscape's brother goes to do it, and he gets chased out. And of course, like the guy ends up being like bludgeoning his wife and decides to bury her alive, right? But he goes to Buscape, who's just trying to sell fish because what's it called? Like his dad has put him and his brother to work. Like even though they're not making little to nothing with his work, and they of course they change like the shorts and stuff, and he puts on the shirt and all that, right? Because he gets out of the house like all naked and shit. And then what's it called? The police are involved, right? The police come in and they pick up Buscape and they're like, "Okay, come with us." Because once again they know they really can't do anything to the kids. Like they can't like interrogate him, and they but like they know that like oh here's this kid getting put into like a cop car. Like it's gonna be scary for the kid. He's probably gonna tell us what's going on. Obviously, Buscape is a little smarter than that. He's not gonna tell him entirely all these things, and you see that like at a certain point the policemen just get like they give up on it. They're like, "Ah, who cares? Like what's the point?"
Yeah.
And then it's until like the guy they have to come back because the guy buried his wife alive, and they found out. Now that's where they care. They're like, oh crap, like yeah, that's kind of like we can let
My
these drug
adults doing crime, stop doing crime. Let cr- let let kids do it. I
yeah
don't have so I don't have to get involved.
yeah. They're like, oh okay, like yeah, they're like these kids, these teenagers like killing each other because they're drug lords, right? But oh, we should probably go out there to investigate this guy who buried his who we found like a woman like buried underground. Like they go and it's so what's it called so surprising that they're like they see Buscabe's brother because he's trying to run away with his girlfriend because they're
Yeah.
like oh which by the way what a beautiful scene how they shot that where like half of the frame is her in the car and Buscabe's in the back like the Buscabe's brother's like pushing the car and
I
like
love that scene.
beautiful scene and it's like the police see him and they're like oh forget about the crime that we're originally here for. Fuck, fuck this poor woman who was just bludgeoned to death because she cheated on her husband. I'm gonna go and find this drug dealer now. And it's like, where are the priorities of the police in this film? Because it's not like Elite Squad, where they're entirely trained to take down these drug dealers and these
You know,
criminals.
that's how regular police works in Brazil. They don't have priorities. Like elite squads, like another level of police, but the
Yeah,
regular police,
they don't care. Yeah,
there are no priorities. That there was a guy here. that he every single day he went to the police station to say, you know, my neighbor is a drug dealer, and he is a drug dealer, and he's selling drugs. I see people coming and going, and I see drugs coming in the mail, and I have to see him bringing drugs to his apartment, and it's next to mine. I don't want to live with a drug dealer, so I am telling you there's a drug dealer in my apartment, in my neighborhood. And the police was like, why don't you just move yourself? And he was like, I live in here for 50 years. I'm not gonna move. And the police was like, "Ah, it's just a drug dealer. It's not a big deal. He's not carrying guns or anything. He's just a dealer. Just live with it."
Yeah. And it's
Because the
like
drug dealer was white. If he was black, I'm pretty sure they were
that would
going.
have been
They
fast
were,
as hell been in that bitch. Yeah. And it's like, and it starts to make sense like why these areas like rely on protection from these slumlords, and it's like, well, if the police aren't gonna come and do their job, like, who do I have to look to for protection?
yeah. And when they do their job, it's like totally wrong.
Like, you come and
They
make
get
the
the wrong
problem
people.
worse. Yeah, you get the wrong people, you
Yeah,
make the problem worse, and it's just like, well, and that's how you create these areas where like, oh, you're run. It's a criminal state instead. You're being run by, the slumlord because well, the police doesn't want to do their job, and when they do it wrong. But yeah, it's so interesting the way the movie does that, and like I said, it highlights so like it's so gritty, and and it shows you like how really irresponsible the police are, and like and it takes, and what's crazy, it all comes back to the fact that it takes for the press to make it the big issue for them to
yeah.
get the police out there, to get the
Press
police
here in
really out.
Brazil,
Yeah,
press here in Brazil is like a really important way to get things done in here.
I believe
The
you.
good things and the bad things. So, like,
Yeah,
there's a famous crime in here that a guy killed his girlfriend after hours of kidnapping her because the press were pressing them. So
yeah,
the press were pressing the police, and so everything went wrong, and he killed the girl. But the press also showed, this thing is wrong. We're gonna show it. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong until someone does something.
yeah. And it wasn't until they like, and like it's funny because like it's not funny, but it's like it's interesting. Like it took Buscapes photos getting stolen from him for them to actually pay attention to it, because like they weren't even supposed to print that. Like he was just
Yeah,
developing them because he wanted the photos, and instead somebody came, took the photos, and they're like, oh, look at this thing. Like we should probably put this out there, and that's what set off that chain of events. It's like what
yeah,
which was like wasn't even supposed to happen. Like it wasn't even supposed to go down that way. But you see it like it's until the press does, until somebody else puts the pressure on the police to do something, is that they're actually going to go out there and do their damn job.
yeah. And if the police doesn't like it here in Brazil, they killed the person that showed. You
Yeah,
know, they killed a political woman in here a few years ago. Her name was Marielle, and she was killed because she was pointing fingers to Bolsonaro's family about militia because he's supposed. I can affirm that. I don't want to be killed or anything.
misinformation, huh?
I'm not gonna spread misinformation online, but um, his family is involved with militia, which is the police that works with the criminals. The criminal police. And she was pointing fingers, and she was shot and killed.
Yeah,
After she pointed fingers, that, oh my god, it suddenly happened, what a shame. Of course, she was killed. She was killed by them, but that's what happened in Brazil. If the police doesn't like what you're showing, exposing,
yeah. So I know we've kind of gone through all the talks, but I did want to get this last one in here, and I really wanted to really hear from you about how it works in Brazil, because in this movie, like we've said it already, like the favelas is where most of these like black people are, and like the more brown, and like those areas where the press were living, where like mostly everybody in that office was mostly light skinned Brazilians, So I really wanted to get more of a way of like how it works within, not just a movie, but how did it work, how it works in Brazil with the with well, race and colorism specifically.
It changed a lot since the movie. It really changed a lot, but still not enough. You know, for example, in my university, I have one black classmate, and I have no black teachers. Literally none.
Wow.
And in cinema, you know, they have a lot of black actors that are great. There's one that I'm totally in love that his name is Babu, and I love him. He's a great actor. He did a biography of Tim Maia, a singer from Brazil. And, you know, he gets a lot of papers on TV. Yes, he does. But he's always the poor black guy or the guy from favela
Oh my god, yeah.
there's a lot of structural racism in Brazil. Oh, we're giving them jobs, but as the black guy who's poor or is a criminal. It
Yeah.
doesn't happen only with the black people, it happens with people from Northeast, which is a poor region in Brazil. Like if you from, from Bahia or other states from Northeast, in a soap opera, you might get a paper, but you're gonna be a maid.
Gotta
You're
love
gonna
it,
act.
yeah. And let me guess, they're the indigenous people.
Now there's a soap opera that is treating indigenous people as a cultural stuff,
Yeah.
but it was one of the few times I saw it. I believe it's treating them with respect, but I honestly don't know because
Yeah.
I never seen it on TV because they just ignore it. But since it's having an indigenous situation here in Brazil, like super sad, they are literally dying because there's no water anymore because Bolsonaro approved, not that he approved, but he stopped seeing some stuff that are going. I Let me see how I say this in English.
Yeah, don't worry.
Mining,
Oh.
mining, but it's mining in waters. It's not actually in mines,
Oh yeah,
like,
no actual mines.
in water, and they contaminated a lot of rivers, and indigenous people were getting sick. They didn't have enough water, they didn't have food because fishes were being killed. And indigenous people are even worse than even worse treated than black people here in Brazil. you know there's That's a really sad situation. Even though it's getting better, it's not good enough.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds you of like the the territory, the documentary that came out about the Amazonians, the let's call the indigenous people living in the Amazon, and of course, if we remember all, the Amazon's forest was burning for a minute, for a bit, during 2020, and it was heavily speculated that Bolsonaro had sent, the troops to go ahead and do that, so that way they could weed out a little bit more of the indigenous tribes in there, and yeah, and I asked you that because like, yes, the film does have most of these brown and black bodies, being killed and being criminals, but I think that the movie does it in a more sympathetic way by showing you how they got to that point. Like,
Yeah, no, my criticism is like how it is nowadays.
yeah,
Like it's always like that. In the
yeah,
movies, I believe it's super respectful to show
yeah,
how they get in that place.
because like we don't just see that Dino just become that like that. No, like we see that Dino and where he was as a kid. Like you like, oh, he didn't really grow up with like a really like big family. He didn't really have a family. Like he's just there, and he he clinged to these kids who were the ones who were the criminals, and they were like, oh, that these guys were my family, and like I felt like I was really
Yeah.
connected to them. So when they abandon him, when they do that mission, something clicks in him that he's like, oh, I'm alone in this. Like I should be, looking out for myself and my friend. We're not really respected by them, and something clicks in the Dino at that time when he's a kid, and that's where I'm like, you have the stereotypical role of like the black actor, right? But at least when in City of God, he Medielis and Lund are like, more preoccupied with showing you how they get to that point, instead of saying like, oh, well, that's what they are, like they're just criminals. And it's like, no, like they're actually there to show you like, this is what happened in Dadino's life, and this is what happened to him, and this is why he was able to that's why he became the slumlord.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like it's and it is different with every country, right? And the way that race plays a big part in there. But it was just like I said, like when I first watched this, I was like, wow, like you actually have black Brazilians in this film. Like you're actually showing what these areas look like, and you're showing like that this population that always wants to get erased from the media that's coming out of this country, and it's like, wow, like you actually
And
are
they're
showing.
not being showed as in football or samba carnival,
No, like they're actually
and not
there.
in a sexualized way as Anita does it. So
That's true. That's true. Even though I do love Anita, but damn, like yeah, that's a big problem with Anita. But yeah, but like it's
she
true.
sexualizes a lot. She There's a criticism about her here in Brazil that she um, perpetuates the sexual tourism in Brazil.
Yeah,
That that is something that we're trying to change, and she's just like, oh no, hey, let's have sex on the streets here in Brazil in my movie clips.
oh man. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to bring up before we wrap up here?
Just how I love how politically important this movie is. It shows Brazil from another point of view. Even here in Brazil, we're used to comedy movies. Like we have a lot of shitty comedy movies here in Brazil. Like they're terrible, terrible. I mean, terrible.
Yeah,
Like you have physical pain watching it, and it's just another way of Brazilians making movies. Like City of God, Carandiru, Elite Squad. There are movies that shows the reality in Brazil in a
yeah,
different way and how it is.
yeah.
So I really, really like it.
And even recently, I don't know if you watched Bakuhao.
I didn't. It it it's because it's a meme here in Brazil.
Really?
Yeah, it was like when Parasite was released and everyone was talking about Parasite.
Yeah.
You have to watch this movie.
Oh yeah,
This
they were
movie is
like,
amazing. Parasite, it's amazing. I haven't seen Parasite, but Bacurau is the same thing. I've heard everyone talking about this movie without talking about this movie because I have no fucking idea of what those two movies are about. And it's a
Bakuhao is
fucking meme.
so good, Julia. Like
It's a
I,
meme here in Brazil because there was a guy who he went to the movies with 22 different girls to see this movie. So it's just everyone's like, oh, Bacurau, 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 Bacurau. So it's like it was so overwhelming during the time
yeah,
that I okay, no, I have to wait. People stop talking about this movie
yeah.
so I can watch it.
You should watch it though. It's such an interesting what's it called, a commentary on Brazilian politics, especially in the way that the United States and like foreign countries are involved in like contemporary Brazilian politics, and it's
That was the first thing I heard about the movie.
yeah,
I had no idea of what the
it's
movie
also
was
such a
about.
fucking awesome western. It's fucking bloody as hell. Like the way that I
Okay.
can explain it is like it's Tarantino meets a Brazilian Western.
Okay.
Yeah, because like it's like in the journey that that movie takes you on. When you finally get to that last 15 minutes of the movie, holy fuck, it is so well deserved. And you're just like, it's like if you're literally seeing the Brazilian version of a Tarantino film.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and that's the best way that I can explain it to you to anybody. It's just it's great. It's such a great movie. But I want it's just like, but that's another one. Like, Brazil put that one on. Like, obviously that garnered a lot of attention for Brazil, and I got like, and it's just interesting to see that how these movies just end up coming back to bring more attention to Brazil. And there's some other ones like Private Desert. Private Desert was really talked about here in the United States from Brazil, and um, yeah,
There's a
Brazil's
great movie that is not like it's not a comedy. Like it is a comedy, but it's not like stupid comedy. That is called Alto da Compadecida. It's such an intelligent movie. It's such an intelligent comedy. It's amazing. It is with Matheus Nascergalli. He is in
yeah.
that movie.
And of course, if we're on this topic before we get out of here, I always recommend this one because I watched this short film at a festival, and she's a great queer femme director in Brazil who's coming up, and one of her films actually finally got her film just got what's it called? The short film got physical distribution here. It's with a collection of other short films, but it's like physically here in the United States now. Um, a Wild Patience has taken me here from Erica Sarmet. Uma paciência salva. I don't know how to say that. Salvajem me trouxe até aqui. I don't know, but great
What is her
movie.
name?
Erica Sarmet. Yeah,
Erika Sarmet.
yeah, very interesting film that also like looks at the relationship, looks at queerness and the LGBTQ community, but also looks at like
Uma paciência selvagem me trouxe até aqui and
yeah,
latifúndio.
yeah, she's great, great movie, great short film if you ever can find it. But she's a great voice. And Brazilian cinema it's just great, and it's always gonna what's it called have a prominent role here in the United States. I mean, this movie is testament to that. So,
Yeah.
with that said, though, we thank you so much for being here, Julia. I know it's late, and I know that what's it called you're cold, so you're like, Raul, shut the fuck up, so I can go get in my blankets already. I want to go to bed. But let's go. I'm really happy that we did this episode. Do you want to
I'm
know?
so happy to be back. I always love to be here.
I know. I love having you on here as well, and I love talking to you. So, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure.
Me too.
Do you can you let the people know where they can find your streams and all that stuff? Where they can find you on the internet?
um, I use the nickname Julia Confefi for everything. Instagram, TikTok, Twitch is now Julia Kof because I lost my old account
You
on
got
Twitch.
banned or did you like get locked out?
I mean, my Althi app didn't work,
Yeah, you got locked out. Damn. That's happening to my friend
and
right now.
I emailed them, and then I emailed Twitch, and they okay, you can email Alti, and I emailed Alti, and Alti said, oh, you can email Twitch, and I was like for 3 whole weeks like that until I decided
Yeah.
to create a new Twitch account.
Yeah, my friend's going through that similar situation right now. It's really rough. Like I I can't believe it. Yeah. This shit's ridiculous.
No, it's terrible, terrible, terrible,
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah. Well, go and follow Julia on all those things. She's great. She's a wonderful friend of mine, somebody who I care for dearly. She's very special to me. So you guys go please check her out. She's a wonderful person. So check out all her wonderful content. And of course, you can keep up to date with me. Check me out on Instagram, Twitter, Serialized, Letterboxd, TikTok, Twitch, under the Nerdy Chicano. I'm under every single one of those platforms as the same name. I'm not Raul Kafkaf, just the Nerdy Chicano on all of them. And of course, if you are listening to this on the audio side of things, please make sure that you leave a 5-star review. It would help us out a lot. I think we had a great conversation, so This deserves that nice 5 stars on the podcast page. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell so you don't miss another episode of The Cinema Condition. Check me out on the Nerdcore with my co-host Brad as we talk about movies and all that stuff, and you check out all the wonderful things that we're doing over there. TheNerdcore.com, Twitch and YouTube is under the Nerdcore, so check all of that wonderful stuff out. And of course, if you want to get this episode early because it's being recorded early, so you won't be able to, so the public won't be able to listen to this for a minute now. Go and check out my Patreon, patreon.com/TheNerdChicano. At $5, you get early access to videos and video essays. $3 gets you early access, but $5 is a sweet spot because you get early access and video essays. So, with that said, like I said, I'm not going to tell you all what's next, but I will say, we are going to be saying goodbye to Julia. This is our last pick for the season. Once again, Julia, thank you for being on. I care about you a lot.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And hopefully when we talk to you again, it's not going to be winter.
Hopefully. But I love winter. I'm not complaining, but today is specifically super cold.
Yeah. Julia's just saying it's just too fucking cold in my house right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, without further ado, to my wonderful cinephiles, renowned scholars, celebrate the love of cinema today, tomorrow, and every day after. Thank you all very much.